we go.
You.
Here's what I would know. I would know quite a few things on Lyndon Johnson's profile, including his decision to go to college or not. I would know who Richard Kleberg was in that particular area. I would know who James P. Buchanan was. This is all in his profile. I would know who Morris Shepherd was. Cope Stevenson. I would know the two reasons they gave you in the profile why Johnson's experience as vice president was not a positive one for him. Maybe two reasons why it would not be a positive one for him. We'll have questions at the end here if you have them. Okay, I would know the 7 political positions that Lyndon Johnson served during his career. 7. Congressional Secretary, House of Representatives, Senate, Senate Minority Leader, Senate Majority Leader, Vice President, and President. Okay? I would know what the Wilderness Act of 1964 did, and again I'm kind of going right down the notes here. And I would know what the National Defense Education Act did, including the 2 branches, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and then the Higher Education Act. I would know those. Wilderness Act of 1964, National Defense Education Act, which included the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and the Higher Education Act. I would know about the election of 1964. I would know who Barry Goldwater was. I would know who William Miller was and the circumstances that cost the Republican Party that election. Remember that, what that story? Goldwater said he'd pick a liberal running mate, and once he got the nomination, he picked a conservative running mate, and a lot of Republicans voted the other way. Okay. I would know what the Medicare Bill of 1965 provided. It provided 3 things to people in America. 2 things were people age 65 and over, and the other thing was for people under the age of 65. I would know that. Medicare Bill. You don't have to know the Grandma story.
Yes, we do.
I would know what the Highway Beautification Act did, the Housing and Urban Development Act, and the Immigration Act. As far as the American space program in Gemini, I would know the 2 specific things that the Gemini missions did to prepare for the upcoming moon landing. And do not get them confused with Apollo. Does anybody remember the 2 things that the Gemini missions did to prepare for the upcoming moon landing? Rendezvous and docking, and the other one was the length and space sufficient for a moon landing. Okay? So the 2 things Gemini did is it provided rendezvous and docking techniques, and it showed that astronauts could spend enough time in space for an upcoming moon landing. I would know the 2 astronauts for Gemini 7, Frank Borman and James Lovell. I would know who Wilt Chamberlain was and who Bob Pettit was. That was under 1966 at Atlanta. Wilt Chamberlain and Bob Pettit. I'd know who Ernesto Miranda was, other than from experience. I would know who Charles Whitman was and some of the details about his craziness on top of the clock tower at the University of Texas on August 1st, 1966. I'm not going to ask how many people he were killed, and just some general things about him. Okay? Maybe what he did with his wife and what he did with his mother and why he didn't do the same thing to his father, that type of thing. I would know who John Artis was, A-R-T-I-S. Anybody know who John Artis was? Yep, the guy gave Hurricane Carter a ride. I would know about the book, The 16th Round. Okay, John Artis, 16th Round.
What month was that in?
No, that was in the story of Reuben Hurricane Carter.
Oh, okay.
I'd also know who Lesra Martin was. Okay, this is all off the notes I provided for you. So, John Artis, the 16th Round, the book, the kind of story behind that, and who Lesra Martin was and whatever became of him. And let's just stop right there. I want all of you to take out those notes that I gave you on Hurricane Carter and take them out of your notebook and throw them out. Yeah. Well, save and then re-highlight. I'd like to have correct information. I just had to throw something. I'd just soon you throw them away, because I'm going to go through with you in a minute. So take out your old Reuben Hurricane Carter, pass them to the back, pass your old ones to the back, and the back person in each row will throw them in the garbage. Your old ones, or whatever you want to do.
Put them on the table and I'll personally.
Okay, put them on the table.
You are not an honest person.
Hey, Sarah, get those. No, get those out. Put them on the table.
You're children.
Get your ass out of the chair and do it.
No,
Okay, let's go, let's take this out and go through it.
I think the new ones are in there.
And you can highlight on this. Again, I would know who John Artis is. I would know about the 16th round. I would know who Lesra Martin is. And I kind of want you to go on the back, page 29 and 30. I want to just read something to you real quick like. Toward the bottom of page 29 it says, Carter eventually moved to Toronto, Canada, where he worked as the executive director of the Association in Defense of the Wrongly Convicted. In 1993, the World Boxing Council awarded Reuben Hurricane Carter the World Middleweight Championship belt. And again, this honor was in recognition of Reuben Hurricane Carter's 22-year fight for freedom, an honor that has never been bestowed any other fighter outside the ring in professional boxing history. Here's what I want you to pay attention to. I looked up some more information. In March of 2012, Carter was diagnosed with prostate cancer and given 3 to 6 months to live. And this is kind of cool, I didn't know this. Shortly after that diagnosis, John Artis came and lived with Carter and took care of him until Carter's death on April 20th, 2014. His old buddy John Artis came back to help him. Lesra Martin graduated from high school in the University of Toronto. And I wanted to update this. He eventually had completed his master's degree and is now serving as a lawyer in Kamloops, British Columbia, specialized in personal injury. I just wanted to update that. Now, the thing I wanted to make you understand, too, is when Judge Sorokin's decision to set Carter free, remember that? It also set who free? John Artis. So we can't forget about John Artis. All these appeals and all these things that happened that freed Reuben Hurricane Carter also freed John Artis as well, okay? So just replace that and we'll go from there. Know who John Artis was, the 16th round, and know the happenings of Lesra Martin, okay? All right, moving on. As far as the Apollo space program, know the 3 components of the Saturn V rocket, which was the command module and what it did, the service module and what it did, and the lunar module and what it did. Okay, make sure you know those. Okay, the 3 components of the Saturn V rocket, the command module and what its purpose was, the service module and its purpose, and the lunar module and its purpose. I also want you to know a little bit about the tragedy of Apollo 1, and the astronauts that were killed were Roger Chaffee, Virgil Gus Grissom, and Edward H. White II. Make sure you know those people. And I would know William Anders and what his role was in Apollo 8. and what the mission of Apollo 8 was set up to do. And I want to go through that just with you briefly so you know exactly what it was set up to do. Number one, to evaluate the command module and the service module performance in that lunar orbit. In other words, they were evaluating both the command module and the service module and how they would perform in that lunar mission. Okay? They also wanted to evaluate the crew's performance in a lunar mission. They wanted to demonstrate communications and tracking at lunar distances from the Earth to the Moon. They wanted to make sure they could communicate with the astronauts and track their whereabouts from the Earth to the Moon. And then they wanted to have them return high-resolution photography of what? Proposed landing sites, okay, for the Moon mission. Okay, so those are the 4 things that Apollo 8 was scheduled to do. So make sure you know those. Okay. Now I want to just go through a little more and just make sure I'm not missing something here. I would really study, I would know the number of astronauts that went from the Gemini space program that ended up participating in the Apollo space program, okay? Okay, the astronauts that served in the Gemini space program that also participated in the Apollo space program. Remember how many there were? 15 out of 16, okay? Okay, I would know what VISTA was also, VISTA. You don't have to know the definition, you know, Volunteers in Service to America, but know what it did. Again, make sure you know those 2 pieces of legislation that were passed under the National Defense Education Act and what it provided. That would be the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and the Higher Education Act. Make sure again you know the 3 things the Medicare Bill of '65 provided. Okay, there'll be 40 answers, and the test will be worth 100. So like say you get 39 answers right out of 40, I'll take 39 divided by 40 and get a percentage, and that'll be your out of 100, okay?
What was the 7 offices?
Okay, he was a congressional secretary, remember, for Richard Kleberg. Okay, he then was elected to the House of Representatives. Remember, he was elected to the House, filling the term of the guy that died in office. You gotta know who that guy was. Then he ran for the Senate against another guy that died, or not against the guy that died, but ran for the Senate, filling another seat of a guy that died, but he lost that election. Then where'd he go after that election? He went to World War II and served in the Navy. When he came back, he decided to run for the Senate again, and he took on Coke Stevenson, former governor of Texas, in the primary election, the Democratic primary, and beat him, maybe to 87 votes, got the nickname Landslide Lyndon. And then he defeated the Republican candidate in the general election, but 2-1, okay? So he served as a congressional secretary, a member of the House, a member of the Senate. Then he was elected Senate Minority Leader. Remember, at the age of 44, the youngest man ever to be in that position. 2 years later, he was elected Senate Majority Leader. At the age of 46, youngest man ever. Then he was elected Vice President and was elected President. So those are the 7 political positions that Johnson held in his career. Okay, yes, Stacia?
What was the question that you asked about, like, what were the 2 reasons why he was a very good vice president?
Yeah, 2 reasons why he was miserable basically as vice president. One was what?
More power.
He lost power. He had more power as Senate Majority Leader than he did as the vice president. What was the other one? He did not feel he should have to be under a less experienced man. Okay? And he really was miserable. His friends and family say it was the most miserable time of his life because the vice president doesn't do much. I mean, they say it's if you want to be the closest thing politically to falling off the face of the earth, be the vice president because they don't do much. Okay, so it was very miserable for him for 2 reasons. 1, he lost power because he was the most powerful man in the Senate, and 2, he didn't like playing second fiddle, so to speak, to a less experienced person or man. Any other questions on the test? Okay, what the plan is tomorrow we're just going to kind of draw and have a little bit of fun. I want to give you one more piece of information. Monday, I'm not sure what we'll do, but we'll do something. And then Tuesday we'll have our test, and then we're going to move on to LBJ and civil rights. Okay? Hey, remember this Richard Speck? You guys had a bunch of questions on this guy that killed all these nurses. So I thought, you know, I feel like they're paying me way more than they should to not give you information you're interested in. So I'm gonna tell you, this is gonna tell you the story, and you can stick this in your notes.
The first time we did that.